Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Institute of Hospitality in Midlands branch. We've been running in lieu of being able to meet up face to face, which obviously would be our preference, and we're looking forward to the time again when we can do. We've been running a series of virtual seminars, webinars, and today we've got a panel discussion aimed at students, mise en place, work ready. So what do you need to do to get ready for work is the sort of idea we've got in mind for this. We've got a panel of guests with a broad range of skills and experience from the industry that I hope will be able to answer some of your questions, help with what your next steps will be, as we hope you enjoy a long and fruitful career in the hospitality industry. If we could have the next slide, please, Sarah, I'll just run through our panel. So we have Lauren Redding from Truly's Restaurant. What I'll actually do is we'll go through and we can have I'll ask each to just do give me sort of 2 minutes of just a sort of hello and this is what we do and how we do it. In a second when we come off this slide. We have Conrad Brunton from Tonic Talent, that's recruitment. We said Sally Davis from Thread Consultancy, Richard Farrelly from Nando's. Have we got Richard joined us now, Sarah?
No.
Okay, hopefully Richard will join us very shortly. I know he's having some networking issues, one of the problems we've all been experiencing, I'm sure, working from home, etc. And Ryan Doyle from Switch Hospitality Management. Have I missed anybody? No. Good, wonderful. Okay, let's go to the next slide then, please. Lauren, if you just a little pitch from you about your business, Truly's, and your experience. Key concern is everybody who's listening in will understand your experience and what you've been through. So when you give them your pearls of wisdom, and for all the rest of the panel, they'll know that it's come from a good source.
Hi, thank you. So my name is Lauren Redding. I own a small independent restaurant in Bournemouth called Truly's. We were open only 14 months before the pandemic started and we were instructed to close. So we've had a really challenging lifetime and we're fast approaching the halfway point where we will have been shut for half of the amount of time the restaurant's been open in its entire lifetime. Before this, my hospitality life started with international hospitality management degree at Bournemouth University, which I did many, many years ago. And during that time as well, like many students, I had jobs in pubs and bars and restaurants, and I really loved it. And it was something that really planted the seed of my dream of one day I would like to open my own restaurant. But when you are in your early 20s, it seems very, very unachievable. My career took me sort of more down business strategy and marketing kind of world and fell into digital banking, which is very, very different. But there's a lot of similarities. It's all about focus on your customers, helping your customers have a wonderful experience and getting them to come back and enjoy your product or service. And so I left my city life behind almost 3 years ago, moved back to the seaside and opened Truly's.
Thank you very much. Conrad.
Good afternoon, everyone. I now run a recruitment company called Tonic Talent, and we specialise in finding talent within the hospitality and catering industries. We've been trading for about 5 years, pretty quietly for the last 12 months, but certainly starting to spring back into action now. Previous to that, I was in hospitality from the age of 14, started as a kitchen porter, worked my way up, studied at the College of Food and got my degree there and went into the industry with Mitchells and Butlers graduates training programme. A few different jobs in between here and there, as we all do. Did a bit of chefing for a while as well, so that I couldn't be bossed around by the back of house. And then went back and lectured at the College of Food for a short time before coming out and starting in recruitment. So a bit of a sort of a well-rounded background, I suppose, being now in staffing to be able to speak today.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Sally.
Hi, I'm Sally Davis from Thread Consultancy. I'm the owner-founder of Thread Consultancy. I've been running my own business for 6 years. We specialise in helping businesses, client side, manage complicated catering projects, really, from outsourcing catering services to sort of negotiating commercial deals, or perhaps intermediate in sort of helping caterers come together with venues to solve various challenges, sales growth, that kind of thing. I started my career as a graduate of the College of Food, but I think I'm a bit older than Conrad. And then I was sponsored by Marriott Hotels, and I went to work in America and converted my HND to a degree. And then I did 20 years working across all the venues at NEC Group, ending in about 2011 as their MD. And then I went to be a consultant to learn how to do that, working for one of the leading consultancies, Russell Partnership, where I did lots of sort of strategy work around things like BA lounges, and working on things like Westfield, Stratford City, and some of the new ventures there. So really, really pleased to be here today. It's a long time since I was a student, though.
Thank you, Sally. Ryan.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Ryan Doyle from Switch Hospitality. I'm Group Director of Sales for our group. Switch Hospitality is a hospitality management company. We currently operate 2 hotels, will soon be 4 in 2022, and we also operate serviced offices. So myself, I worked in hospitality since I was 16. I've been in the industry for 11 years and have done a various amount of jobs. Started from cleaning bedrooms all the way up into sales now. So I graduated also from the College of Food in Birmingham, and done a placement year over in America working for Marriott. So done lots of jobs and have now ended up in sales, which is fantastic. So I think it's a great example of how you can move through the ranks and actually experience plenty of different roles within the industry and build a career.
Thank you very much. Obviously, Richard's still having problems, so let's just get cracking would be my suggestion. I think just before I start other questions, it's worth saying both the panel, the branch committee, we've all been students previously. We've all done various flavours of hospitality management studies, degrees, HNDs, whatever that may be, and then moved into a variety of different roles. And one of the things that we discussed as a committee as we were putting this together was it's not always clear when you're a student that all these opportunities exist. There are some sort of headline roles, and that you might, hotels often gets mentioned, but there are a whole range of associated roles and industries under hospitality banner, which would be interesting and perhaps of more interest for some people versus others. Richard's just joined us. Richard, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Just a couple of minutes for yourself, please, and about your sort of the background before you came to Nando's. Would be very helpful.
Okay, sorry everybody, Wi-Fi connection just disappeared at home for some reason, so I'll still try on the main computer. So my background, I was brought up in the business really. My brother always had restaurants and bars, so my first job was many moons ago filling up bar shelves for considerably less than a minimum wage, I can assure you of that. I then went on, did a degree in Bristol, economics and politics, and then went on to do a postgrad, originally postgrad in hotel catering and institutional management. But at that point, I was taken on as a trainee manager. So I decided I'd had enough of academia at that time and started working back then for Grand Met, and then spent many years going through various different Grand Met, Scottish and Newcastle, Bath, Fuller's, moving all around the country, primarily in branded restaurants. Always had an interest in that sector, always been around it, despite having worked in some late night venues and hotels. And then, as you say, up to speed, just over 20 years ago, I joined this rather strange bunch of people that were opening a restaurant concept in the UK called Nando's. And back then, we tried to explain to people that we had a different service style, that we weren't a Mexican restaurant. And here we are 20 years later, as I say, and hopefully most people have now heard about Nando's, know what we do, that we're not a Mexican chain. Yeah, we're struggling on the same as everybody, I think. That's really my background.
Thank you.
If that helps.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, first question. Thank you for all those who submitted some questions. With a large number of people, I think we felt it was difficult for people just to fire questions in. Potentially we can take some if there are some thrown onto the chat later, but we've got these that were posed upon entry as people were buying their tickets or registering for their tickets. So from Kelly Vo from Oxford Brookes University. The lockdown has taken many opportunities for students to gain working experience and prepare for their career postgraduate. It means we have a disadvantage now when looking for jobs compared to people who already had experience and got made redundant during the pandemic. What can we do in this situation? Who would like to pick that up from the panel first, please? Okay, I'm going to go with Conrad.
I think it's true, it has to a certain degree. However, I suppose we're talking about that whole employability piece of just making sure you've got an absolutely fantastic CV. We've done a few separate pieces, and I'm sure the Institute have got some stuff about CV completion to make sure that it's 2 pages, someone reads through it, absolutely no mistakes on there, a nice opening personal statement. Actually thinking who you want to work with and then writing a tailored covering letter to a general manager of a site and taking it in, that's going to go a long way, rather than just thinking, well, I'm just going to tweet them now. I think a lot of people think social media is the answer, and I don't know whether it is always. So actually finding where you want to work and aligning your values with a business, and physically going in and saying, I love Nando's because it's fast paced and X, Y, and Z. I think that actually that's probably a really good way. And if you can, I suppose, try to get some experience as the industry opens up, whether that's if you can just work in any part of the business or shadow a shift, offer to shadow a couple of shifts if it's something you can give your time at, maybe for free, I suppose. Just really try and be proactive as you can. Make sure that you're ready if you do get an interview or just a meeting with a general manager or a hiring manager, I guess. Thanks,
Conrad. Anybody else?
Can I add to that? Because I just to go on from Connor's point, I had exactly an example of what you've just said. So we are not currently recruiting at the moment, but we know we will be shortly before we reopen in May, but we haven't quite got everything together yet and ready to do that. And on Monday, I received probably the most perfect email that potential candidate could send me, it jumped out at me so much that we've invited him in next week to come and speak to us, even though we still haven't quite got our plan of what we're doing. But what I really loved about it was completely personalized to us and our business. He knows our restaurant, he's eaten in our restaurant, which helps, but he really put in some key points that shows that he understands our business, understands our style, is totally connected with our brand, our ethos, and everything that we really believe in and that we're really passionate about. And then he showed that he was also really passionate as well. So instantly, before we even read his CV, we were like, this guy's great, let's get him in and speak to him. And then we read his CV quite quickly, actually. And normally, I have been inclined to disregard cover letters because largely they are all the same. But in this scenario, it was kind of ran the other way. Like, the CV was good, it was fine, but actually it was more about meeting this person who sounds like he's a really good fit for who we are. So I think if you can really find a way to get your passion and enthusiasm and know the business that you're applying to, it really does sort of set you apart from other people, even when they haven't even got a job advertised.
Brilliant, thank you.
I'm just going to say, I completely agree with what everyone was saying, but also if you can just try and find any experience, so even if you haven't been able to work in our industry. We are a people industry, so anything that you can do to, whether that's sort of at a supermarket or it's voluntary work or just something that has made a difference. You know, there's had all these vaccination centres that has been open. What is it that you've spent your time doing? Have you done an additional course to make you a better marketeer, or really anything that can really not just show that you're a people person, but really emphasize your skills, and it's something to put on your CV, which, to be fair to any student, is always going to be restrictive. You know, you don't get experience until somebody gives you a go. So I think anything that you can think of that just sets you apart and shows that you have got those skills, you know, would be a real help. I've recently been involved in helping my son, who is a first year student, but not in hospitality. And he was trying to go for his placement. And because he'd been working in the garden centre, it wasn't exactly the most exciting thing, but he was able to show the different types of people that he was serving, the different interactions. And actually he got his placement based on the fact that the other 5 that went for it, they hadn't had any experience doing anything. So I think if you can just find something to set you apart, it's always going to be good experience, even if it's not immediately needed now.
I also think, just to make a separate point on that, I think mentoring is a huge opportunity that people aren't taking advantage of at the moment. And that there's a lot of senior people in the industry that may have more downtime than previous they would have. You know, when we mentored a student 2 years ago who was really interested in sales, this, you know, young lady had absolutely no experience in sales. She'd worked within hospitality, but didn't have the tangible work experience within sales. Had approached me through UCB, her university, and asked, can we be mentored? Can you set aside some time? Yes, fantastic, I did that. And actually she impressed me so much. When there was a vacancy available, she would be the first person that we would jump out to and respond to. And you know, she took it upon herself to ask for that additional mentorship. You know, yes, there may not be a paid position where you can have experience, but I think you can certainly gain a lot of experience through mentorships.
Brilliant, thank you. We do have Richard, yes, any thoughts on that one as well?
Yeah, just to reiterate a couple of points, I think one thing, although it's been a terrible, terrible time for the last year, we know that there is demand out there through whichever channel. So thankfully, when we come to April and May, we know that customers are going to come back into our establishments. So there is going to be a need. So don't be put off by the fact that there's no jobs currently. There will be, and some of us are still recruiting. And I think the other point is, as the world goes to more and more digital, I think the first comment around put a face out there. We are a people business, and that comes foremost in everything that we do, whether we're doing that digitally, off premises, or when we get back to serving customers face to face. And having somebody that can come in that has got those skills of being able to relate face to face, have a conversation, they will always be in need. And I think the final point on it is be authentic. Look at where you want to be and where you want to work, and understand that that's going to be a fit for you as much as you for that company. And if you're being your genuine self and you're able to get out there and speak to people, then you'll find the role that's right for you.
Brilliant, thank you. Ryan picked up something that was a further question we had around mentoring. For those of you in the audience who aren't really clear, could one of you perhaps just go through what mentoring is, what a mentor does, and the benefits that that Ryan sort of talked about there as this process, you know, and how do you go about getting a mentor? We've got an answer as the Institute of Hospitality, by the way, on that, but perhaps a little bit about mentoring would be very helpful, just to make sure everybody understands, please. Who would be able to pick that up?
I don't mind picking that up and jumping on that. I think with mentoring, it's what you make of it, and it can be anything you want to be. And you know, when I first came into the industry, I had a fantastic general manager who really saw some talent and said, you know, I want to work with you. I really want to see where you want to go. and actually invested time in mentoring me. Now actually moving, 11 years down the line, I still have a mentor, someone quite senior within the events industry who I can pick up the phone and ask a question. I think however far you go through your career, you constantly need to learn. And I don't necessarily think mentoring is for someone that's within a certain age bracket, that there's always opportunity to learn. I think really think about where you want to go. If I was looking for a mentor, I would look within my career path and think, right, where do I want to be in 10 years? What job role do I want to be in? Okay, that's the sort of mentor that I want. Someone that can talk through their life experiences and almost guide you on the right path into where you need to be and learning from their own experiences.
Brilliant, thank you. Anybody else on the panel got any other thoughts about mentoring?
Yeah, I just... Oh.
On, Lauren, yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say mentoring is really, really powerful. And I think as a tip, don't be afraid to ask somebody to be your mentor, because actually people love giving advice. People love talking about themselves. People and people like helping other people. I've done all sorts of mentoring through all of my different roles in my career, and it actually helps me develop myself as a person as well. So I think don't be shy in asking. Try and do some research on the person that you want to be your mentor. Try and understand if you think they're going to be a good fit, sort of maybe understand their background or a bit about their personality or something. Like see what stalking you can do online. Try and find somebody that's a good fit, and just ask. Be prepared for somebody to say no. They might be too busy, but you'd probably be surprised how many people would happily turn around and say yes, happy to.
Thank you. Was there someone else who was going to add a further thought on mentoring? Richard, yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, again, the same thing. Mentoring is a two-way street. So when I've had mentors, I'm learning as much from them and a different perspective as hopefully they're gaining something from me. And it's a very valuable space, I suppose, to be able to have conversations. And in a world where coaching is ever prevalent, then a mentor's a really nice, I find it a kind of an informal way to have access to that as well, and just get another person's perspective and a little bit of support. And also it can open up networks and contacts that can be invaluable in the future also.
Absolutely, brilliant, thank you. Another one around COVID. So this from Maria Goggin, who's a supervisor. How do we overcome the barrier of wearing a face mask when interacting with customers, as I feel my smile is my connection with a guest's journey? Let's go with, who's going to pick that one on first?
I don't mind answering that one, since I am a direct customer facing role. We wore face visors rather than masks to serve our customers at the table, because for that very reason, our smile, your whole face, you need to be able to light up and you need to be able to engage with your customers. And also what we did was to ensure that we were like double safe, was the way we laid the tables out so that we can stand further back and we've got a bit more space so that we can still do it. So I don't know if we've had the guidance yet of when we reopen that we have to have masks again. I assume we do, but there are a number of options and visors, and there's smaller, like clear plastic ones. There's different products out there, and I think if it's something that you're keen to look into, it's worth investing. Maybe buy your own one, even if your job doesn't give you one, because a smile just does so much more for customer service. 100%.
Thanks, Lauren. Anybody else in a...
I would just add that I think you smile with your eyes as well. So I think you have to kind of overdo the expressions a bit more, gestures, body language, and that does help. I think people can sense the warmth. Just have to exaggerate it a little.
Thank you. Richard, did you...
Yeah. I think also on the positive side, and obviously very close to me, is we've not been able to serve customers properly face to face for some time. Everything for us is off premises. But the positive side of that is people are so used to not having that contact. By just a little bit of time sitting down or standing or actually engaging that kind of personal touch with somebody, is meaning an awful lot more now than it ever has done. It's certainly not being taken for granted now. You know, a small conversation to somebody who's queuing up. When we reopen, thankfully it's coming. Again, customer expectations are going to be very, very different, and they're not used to having, whether it be eyes or whether it be a smile or someone's time. So I think the advantage for where we're going to be is how much a little bit of time will go an awful long way when we get back to normal.
Great. Yes, thank you. I'm going to move on from COVID. So just some more general questions, I think. Hopefully we will all be able to put COVID behind us soon. Question about international students. I think we've probably got some international students with us at the moment. And this is around, this is from Menny Poon from Oxford Brookes. How challenging would it be for international graduates to find a job to meet the Tier 2 work visa requirement? Anybody got any insight into that? Are we talking about a large organisation as being the best route to make that happen? Is that a large international player? Okay, it might.
Bim, the tier 2 sort of question, I mean, is a sort of question that even a lot of universities sort of face as to students being able to sort of actually sort of come to the UK and study. And the tiers sort of visas is largely referring to those students outside the EU. However, now that we saw fit to sort of exit the EU, there are sort of complications as well for individuals that don't have settled status, which will probably have an impact to the industry as well, sort of longer term. I think probably from an employer point of view, the issue will be the reassurance that they have that the necessary sort of paperwork's in place, that they are therefore compliant with what the Home Office regulations are. And if that is a grey area and they're not sure, then it's highly unlikely an employer will be able to offer that sort of job because the penalties are quite high. Long gone are the days when, you know, many of the hospitality businesses used to survive with illegal labour. I remember working in one hotel in London where if you heard the tannoy announcement with the owner of the white Rolls Royce, ABC 123 come to reception, and that usually involved various people diving down laundry chutes in order to escape the police that were coming to do a sort of a check. And, you know, the industry sort of largely sort of in certain cities survived on that. And, you know, and the same is true sort of in some of European Union countries as well. Employers can't take that risk. They do need that reassurance. And I think there are other things that international students can think about carefully. And that is about sort of, you know, developing sort of their language skills, their written skills in terms of sort of the way in which they apply for a job, getting things sort of checked through. Could there be unfortunate double meanings, double entendres, perhaps that are in a letter that might not come across quite so clearly? But those people that have had that sort of experience of sort of working in another sort of environment, it is incredibly valuable. And, you know, even if your language skills need some development, you know, don't be afraid to sort of take maybe more of a back of house type sort of role should it come through, or even sort of a job role that might not have been your first choice, but would give you that opportunity to develop your language skills as you go along. And if you see an opportunity to do sort of further language training alongside work, so much the better. I had to do it for a company that I worked for in Amsterdam. You know, and the general manager there was paying for me to go to night school twice a week to learn the language. And that was in a sort of an environment where where there were 85 nationalities working.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rob. For those who don't know, Rob is on our committee at the Institute of Hospitality Midlands branch, but also a senior role at UCB. So thank you. in terms of some specific questions, Georgia Ferrara at Oxford Brookes. I'm a final year student in hospitality management, and I would like to start a career in HR when I graduate. Which steps should I take, considering that hotels in the UK are not currently hiring? Well, there's an assumption in there that perhaps you might like to address, but also around the targeting around HR. So perhaps I ought to go to Conrad first.
Yeah, that's fine. I would say that everyone's going to be recruiting. As Richard said, it may not be now. Certainly, our board's gone from nothing to red hot within the space of a week. So I think people don't need to worry. There's absolutely jobs going to be out there for people. I suppose I would recommend looking at some sort of graduate scheme within a larger hotel company or a restaurant chain, something of that nature. That's not to say that an independent business wouldn't put you through the right kind of training to get you there, but I think that a larger organisation is probably better set up to take you in that direction. Learning all areas of the business operationally first, and then going in the direction of staffing. There are apprenticeships out there that one can take at any age now. I think that one of the biggest misconceptions, sadly, is that an apprentice is someone who takes a manual job and they are under 24, and that's absolutely not the case. I've put people into businesses where they've been over retirement age, often a kitchen porter, and normally a gentleman. He wants to work, and he can wash pans fantastically in a restaurant, and they've put him on basic kitchen skills apprenticeships age 68. So there are lots of ways. Doesn't matter what you do, we can open this out away from HR. If you've got sort of a head office position, then very much stick to that. And I think go back to the mentoring question that sort of was fielded by everyone, and try and find a mentor through LinkedIn and get some advice and allow them to open up their network to you, really. So I think that goes wider than HR. It could be, strategic management, operational management, or whatever kind of director and board level role you might be trying to attain within these larger organisations.
Conrad, thank you. And perhaps, yes, more widely than just HR. Any of the other panel got some thoughts there about steps to consider in terms of focusing on that particular role?
I think, again, what I said earlier in terms of pick the organisation that you want to work for, you'll know, even little things, but where are they based? You've often got national brands that would like to have people certainly coming in from operations, maybe to go into those other central support functions. But are you prepared to move? Because usually there is a head office of some description that's going to need you based there. But again, go back and look at, if that's the path that you've got, most employers, I think, will be happy that you've got a 3 or 5 year plan of where you want to be, and that you've got that mapped out, and will eagerly take you on. So it's almost, if you set out the stepping stones that you want to follow, I think most organisations will happily support that.
Thanks.
And I think just on that point, I think never shun the thought of an entry-level position. I remember when I graduated university, and a lot of my friends were looking at, they wanted to go straight into a management position, and unfortunately didn't have the operational experience. Hospitality is a career that you can progress through as quickly as you can make it happen. And looking back at the HR question, both of our HR team within the group come from operational backgrounds. So Emma, who's our HR and People Development Director, started off as a graduate restaurant manager, working her way through operations, really enjoyed the people element, and then actually learned her CIPD qualification through her role and progressed into a HR director role. And Pauline, who's our assistant HR, and she started off as a conference and events porter, progressed into a supervisory role, and again has now progressed into a HR role. So I think, very much get your foot in the door of the industry that you want to be in, and then move within that role. I think it's a lot easier to jump in, get some experience, and then start talking to the right people about how the company can sponsor you, how the company can give you additional qualifications, then trying to jump straight in at that senior role when you're going to be competing with people who probably have a little bit more experience than you would.
Thank you. I've got another question here, which I'm actually going to pick up straight away. Adam Jarman just submitted it on the chat, so I'll put it out there. He's at UCB, culinary arts management student, and this is looking at postgraduate rather than graduate, which is why I thought it might be useful in terms of studying. So the question is, interested in transitioning from kitchen positions. A number of the panel members mentioned that they began working in kitchens, similar to myself. I'm just interested in what the process was like to transition to your current positions, to figure out what the best route for someone such as myself could go down, i.e. masters in business, management schemes in large organization. And I suppose that is asking, the reason I thought that might be useful, that's asking a question that is a bit more studying or straight into work. I mean, and that so there were a couple of questions that were sort of related to that, but I think this was directly relevant. Who would like to pick that up first, please?
I think I'd quite like to mention something that's kind of relevant. And I think if I look back to when I was finishing university and what I wanted to do when I grew up, I didn't really know. And I think a lot of people get caught up on that. You need to have that end goal and an end plan, and then you need to find your route to always get there. But actually, it's also okay to not have a plan as long as you're willing to go and explore and try out some other things. So it's kind of maybe a bit more controversial and not aligned completely with the question, but I think it's certainly wonderful to have a goal, and there's many routes that you can get there. But I think as individuals, we're all really different, and how we go about things and how you understand and recognize your skills as you progress and develop through your career, you might actually surprise yourself and realize that you're better in one area than another that you thought was where you were going to go. So I think you don't always have to get stuck on the plan, but also just, you know, try and be a bit open, but be very, very self-aware of your strengths and your weaknesses. What works well for you, do more of it. What's not really working well, either don't do more of it or develop it and learn and how to grow in that space.
Thanks, Lauren.
I suppose just to pick up on that, and some of us from the panel, obviously, we said we studied at UCB. I think a lot of people who, you always have that sort of argument, a lot of times with chefs, shouldn't I just go straight into a restaurant? With that restaurant, again, going back, maybe it's going to put you on some very structured development so that you cover all the areas that you might in a culinary arts degree. Fantastic. But the chances are you're going to get put on larder and left on larder for 9 months, and then you're going to move on to hot starters if you're lucky, or pastry or what have you. I always say that the development that you're going to get from an educational institution while working, it gives you the most rounded finish, I would say personally. So for the person that posed that question, I think start with the end in sight if you can, as Lauren's saying, and where do they want to end up? When I see someone, no matter what point they are in their career, if they're a graduate or if they were a managing director, I ask where do they want to be in 10 years time, and I think that's what you always ask yourself. So some general, a great degree at a really good institution. Lauren, I think, studied down in Bournemouth, which is a great institution for hospitality as well. I'm not saying it doesn't matter what you want to do, but touching on what Richard and I have said, if it's something that you're interested and passionate in and you're working alongside it, I mean, the Fat Duck was the place to be when I was studying at the College of Food. I drove from Birmingham to the Fat Duck for 5 weeks. I funded it myself. It was the most incredible experience, but I didn't get paid a penny. I was lucky I could do that. I'd got some savings from previous jobs, but it was just the most incredible experience. Not everyone can do that, I appreciate, but people could write to a local, facility restaurant that they admire and get some experience like that. So there's always that opportunity to cross-train and learn more, I think.
Thanks, Conrad.
If I may come in, good afternoon. My name's Lewis. I work at the College of Food at UCB. I'm also actually the year manager for our master's degree in culinary arts. I'm also Adam Jarman's one of his chef lecturers and one of his year managers. So Adam, you posed a really good question there, and I think for you to be here today and ask a question in this type of forum is probably indicative of your ambition, and it's a really good first move to do. You know, you're putting yourself on the map there, so kudos to you, Adam, for doing that. I just wanted to sort of echo some of the things that Conrad and Lauren have said about this this goal, this aim that students should have, and this kind of master plan. Plans can change. I'm sure we all had plans a couple of years ago that changed dramatically, and we're evolving and we're changing. From an education's perspective, I think it is very much about balance, like Conrad said. It's about improving your knowledge, your awareness, almost your globalization. We're in a very global industry, and it's about increasing that globalization, developing your knowledge, whilst working alongside and getting experience. But one of the things that degrees, and certainly master's degrees, can do is develop core skills, soft skills. It can give confidence. It can give creative inquiry skills. It enables you to develop your own personal brand, to have an awareness of the wider market, to research markets. And it can transform people from maybe being quite shy and introvert to being very ambitious and sort of forthcoming. And I think that education environment at postgraduate can enhance someone personally. Alongside that, I think experience in the industry is vital. Knowing Adam's position and his ambitions, and if there are any students similar, I would say get good education, get a good knowledge, but also support that with experience, because you need credibility in the industry as well. You need, if you're going to go into something like consultancy, management, a wider role, you want to know that you've got that credibility and that experience behind you that other professionals or other clients would recognise, and they'll have that confidence in you. So it is a very personal journey. I know people that have gone through with no education, left school at 15, and they're running Michelin star hotels, Michelin star restaurants, or 5-star hotels, or very high up in their career. I also know people that have got masters and doctorates that haven't done so well. So it's down to the person and the individual, but I certainly do think that education can provide a lot of soft skills and core skills, but that does have to be balanced with experience. But yeah, credit to you, Adam, for taking that first step, and I think you've made a really good move there.
Thanks, Lewis. Richard, yes, I was just thinking we've got some different flavours, and hotels not necessarily the only place to go with this sort of.
I think from my point of view, I mean, I graduated and then worked in hospitality, and my degree in economics and politics, I certainly learned more about how to get on the hospitality and going to the bar on the campus than I did from some of the lectures. But conversely, about 5 or 6 years ago, I did an executive MBA. And the experience, to go back to what I think Lewis said, the experience that I'd had in industry was really valuable, to allow me to enjoy doing the exec MBA more than anything else, and also flourish with it. So I think somebody said earlier, plans will change. I think if you're rigid in, I'm going to do A, B, and C, you're going to run out of options fairly soon. But blend it of what's going to be useful. Not everybody, is good at picking up skills practically. Not everybody is good at picking up skills theoretically. You've got to pick whichever is the blend that's right for you. And also the final point on it, I think, Lewis, you mentioned around soft skills and leadership skills. The business we're in now has always been a people place. And it's about your behaviours, how you manage people, the emotional connection that you have with individuals. And you can get a good theory of that out there, but that only comes down with learning, talking to others, gaining experience. So I think in all of that, it's a blend of your personal experience, and we all make mistakes and learn by them, about maybe taking some academic stuff on, if that's a specific route you want to go down to. But certainly the biggest thing is sitting down, talking with people, and understanding, because to get ahead in, I think, any business now, you need to have those leadership skills, and those leadership skills come from having a level of emotional intelligence more than anything else.
Thank you. Brian, Sally, any thoughts on that, or shall we move on to another question?
I would agree with what everyone's pretty much said. For me, it is the balance, it is the combination. You can do so much better academically with that practical experience, and conversely use what you've learnt in a practical way. So for me, to combine is the perfect solution, providing, I think, after you've graduated, you've got that thirst to learn more now. I think some people have had enough after a few years, and that's also okay to go then into industry and come back to studying a little bit later. It's got to be what suits you. And I think, if you ask yourself deep down, what the right thing is to do, whether you're ready to take on more or not.
Right, thank you. A couple of sort of general thoughts just to throw in there before we sort of wrap up, and I'll ask Sam just to say a few words from to close off from our branch. Here's one that perhaps would be just across the board, and I'll come to each of you in turn. What are the key soft skills you look for in recruits? Ryan.
I definitely think, and maybe I'm slightly warped because I work in a sales environment, but I think personality, it has to be all about personality. I don't think you can work in hospitality if you don't have a personality. You need to be building a relationship with your clients, with your customers, with your guests. And I think a smile goes such a long way, and actually the ability to have a bit of a laugh when you're in an interview. Don't go to an interview, be rigid and be terrified to put your personality across. I've sat in interviews before and I've spoke with someone who's yes, no, yeah, fantastic, and they were the most qualified person that you would ever want to recruit on paper. But it sounds awful to say, but I sat in the interview and actually walked away thinking, that's not the right person. There's no personality. How are they going to build a relationship with both our internal and external stakeholders? So for me, the number one skill has to be personality. Don't be afraid to shine in an interview.
Thanks, Ryan. Conrad.
I think it's a mixture: passion, enthusiasm, drive. Obviously, slightly depends on the role. I know some chefs, for example, if you're not customer facing, obviously you don't necessarily have to have this huge personality. You could be quite introvert, but you're driven and you really want to succeed. Certainly, of course, front of house customer facing, that personality, again, that passion. A question I'll always ask someone is, tell me about when you've had some great hospitality. That could have been that someone went to a Little Chef 20 years ago. A lot of you aren't even old enough to remember those, so I'm showing my age now. But it does not have to be at a 5-star hotel or a Michelin star restaurant. I've had some incredible service in Nando's, absolutely incredible. I've had some incredible service in a cinema. I think things like that, and picking up on that just in the wider world and being aware of what actually great hospitality is something that's really important. But I don't know whether there are necessarily just a few, and I suppose it depends on each of us, but those would be the sort of key things that I look for.
Thanks, Conrad. Well, I suppose, Richard, you were teed up there nicely with the Nando's reference. So do you want to go next, please?
Beautifully done. Yeah, I think it will depend on role, obviously. I think two things for me I'll always take will over skill. If somebody can come in and say that they're going to metaphorically roll up their sleeves and get involved, and somebody that's going to be a bit better tomorrow than they were yesterday, that's the kind of like a key driver for whatever role. So that kind of encompasses the motivation. And I think I touched on it earlier on, but also the comment, somebody who's going to be a bit, be yourself, be authentic, be genuine. If you don't get that role in that organisation, it may well be that organisation is not the right organisation for you. And all too often, I think I've certainly done it, is you look at a role or you look at a job and you kind of go after that because you think that's what you should be doing, rather than, are you looking for the next boss that you want to work for who's going to give you everything back? But absolutely that point of difference of being an individual and somebody, at the end of that, as I said earlier, we're a people-facing business. We will always be a people-facing business at some point. That's why people want to come out to our venues. And you've got to get that across. And yeah, have a laugh, have a joke, enjoy yourself, and ask questions. People that are successful with me is when I feel that I've been interviewed rather than I've done the interviewing, because that person's come along and wants to know what I'm going to do for them. And that can be a real game changer for me. I recently interviewed a chap who's gone through apprentices, all of these things, and yeah, I was drained by the end of it. And I've offered him a job because he's keen, he's interested, and he's going to make a difference. And that, I think, is what we're all going to want at the end of the day.
Brilliant, thank you. Sally.
I think personality is really important. Relatable skills. We're all very different people, so absolutely be authentic, but try and get some commonality and relate with the other person, because if you can do that, you can relate to any customer. And probably my top one is resilience. Our industry, you really need to dig deep sometimes to keep going. And I think most good caterers are resilient, which is why, after being faced with all that we've been faced with this last year, which is unheard of, because normally when there are problems with jobs, people come into our industry. We're not normally the ones that are closed, and we're still smiling, and we're still, most of us, ready to open up and go again, even though we've been knocked back a few times. So for me, resilience is shown in lots of different ways. But being positive is a really important skill.
Thanks, Sally. And Lauren?
Richard stole my answer, which was authenticity.
That is the problem, going the last one for an answer to a question, I suppose. Apologies.
That's right. I've also got another one. I think authenticity for me is really, really important. I've always been very authentic, sometimes controversial or what have you, but I wear my heart on my sleeve, and you'll always get what you see. With my regular customers, it goes down a treat. If I can remember their name or have a laugh or tell them something random, they love it, and that's me, and that's my brand. And I love it when my staff join in and have a chat and get to know all of our regulars. And a lot of my waiting staff are students, and customers ask them about their studies, and it's so nice to see people interacting as real people. So authenticity for me is really, really important, and also not when you're just engaging with your customers, but also with other members of your team. I think building a successful team, you need to be able to work as a family in hospitality. You will do long hours. Things will go wrong. Things that you can never plan for will need to be overcome, and the only way that you can do that is as a good team. And for me, if you can always be honest with each other in a team, then you can overcome pretty much anything, and really build in that family ethos. The other skill I was going to say that I really, really look for when interviewing and speaking to people is their listening skills, and not just listening, but being able to hear what is being said. So whether that's taking direction from managers or supervisors, or just talking to customers, what is the customer really telling you? If a customer's trying to complain, are they actually complaining about everything, or are you hearing what they're saying? And actually, is it just something wasn't quite as they expected, and actually it's really not a big deal, so we can overcome it really, really quickly, and really honing in on your listening skills. You don't always need to have the answer straight away, but be able to hear what people are saying really makes a difference, and I think it really helps contribute to that sort of team mentality as well.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm conscious of time. We're nearly coming up to our hour. I know everyone's got lots of other things to do, I'm sure. Sam Goss, the chair of our branch, the Midlands branch of the Institute. Couple of minutes from you before we sign off, please.
Thank you very much, and a massive thank you to the panel, to Ryan, Lauren, Conrad, Sally and Richard for taking valuable time out of your busy schedules for your expertise today. Greatly appreciated. And thank you to everybody who's been in attendance today. I hope you found it useful. I certainly have. I've been in the industry a few years, and I've certainly picked up a few tips that I'll take on board when I'm looking for my next exciting opportunity as well. Institute of Hospitality is here to support the industry, to give back, to help with continuous personal development. So if you're not aligned with us, or if you're not connected with our social media, please do so. Some of the key points that I've taken away, wow, personalization, what are your values? Are they aligned with where you're wanting to work? Mentor, has that been on your radar? Maybe have a look for a mentor. volunteering, you know, if there isn't a job out there straight away, maybe volunteer, like Conrad did, find a stage potentially, and offer to get some great experience with someone you really want to work for. The importance of smiling, of having soft skills, emotional intelligence, that human connection, authenticity. Wow, the list goes on. There's so much great advice that has been shared with us all today. So a massive thank you to the panel. Our next event for the Institute of Hospitality is on Monday, the 22nd of March at 4 o'clock, and it's open to all. It's the Midlands meetup. It's a very informal, just chat and catch up and bounce some ideas around, and to see, you know, put the world at right. You know, we're in an amazing industry. Yes, we've gone through some challenging times, but we've got such an exciting future ahead of us. Yeah, this is such a great industry to be in, and we're all here to support you in every step of your journey and your career. So that's it from me. Bim, thank you very much, and a massive thank you also to the committee, the unsung heroes here that have put it all together. So to the rest of the committee, to Steve, to Tim, to Sarah, to Rob, to Caitlin, the whole committee of the IOH, a massive thank you, and apologies if I've forgotten somebody.
Sam, thank you very much. Thank you to the panel. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and we hope to see you again at some stage soon. The next event we're running would be perfect. Thank you very much. Have a good day.